The alarm systems at Seoul Orbital Shipyard started screaming at exactly 3 in the morning. Captain Jiho rolled out of his bunk and grabbed his tablet before his eyes were fully open. 20 years of working in space had taught him that alarms in the middle of the night usually meant something interesting was about to happen. "What now?" he muttered, pulling up the sensor data. His eyes went wide. 12 massive ships had just appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. They were big, really big, and they were moving slowly toward Mars' orbit. More importantly, they were leaking atmosphere, radiation, and what looked like engine coolant into space. Jiho hit the emergency call button. "Director Hiren, you need to see this." 30 minutes later, half of Earth's defense fleet was on high alert, and the other half was trying to figure out if this was an invasion or something else entirely. The alien ships had stopped near Mars and were broadcasting a message in broken English. It had taken them weeks to learn the language from Earth's radio signals. "We are Valthek. We need help. Our ships are damaged. We can pay." Director Hiren stood in the command center of the shipyard, watching the alien vessels on the main screen. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and the kind of calm that came from dealing with impossible situations every day. Next to her, Jiho was practically bouncing with excitement. "Look at the hull damage on that one," he said, pointing at the largest ship. "And those engine ports are completely misaligned. How are they even flying?" "Focus, Jiho," Hiren said. "We need to know if they're dangerous first." "They're definitely not dangerous right now," Jiho replied. "Those ships look like they've been through a war. Half their weapons are offline, and I'm seeing hull breaches on at least 8 of them." The diplomatic channels crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking careful English with an odd accent. "I am Ambassador Talon, of the Valthek fleet. We request permission to approach for repairs. We have been running for 3 months from the Kryn Empire. You are the first civilization we have found that might help us." Hiren picked up the microphone. "Ambassador Talon, this is Director Hiren of Earth's Orbital Shipyard. Why should we trust you?" There was a long pause. "Because we are desperate. And the desperate do not lie well. Our fleet carries 10,000 refugees. Our ships are failing. If you cannot help us, we will die in space. We offer star charts, technology, and our friendship. We offer anything we have." Jiho looked at Hiren. "Boss, those ships are falling apart. Even if they wanted to attack us, they'd probably explode halfway here." Hiren nodded slowly. "How long would repairs take?" Jiho pulled up his tablet and started calculating. His fingers flew across the screen as he analyzed the sensor data. "Basic repairs? Hull patches? Engine maintenance? Life support fixes? Maybe 3 months if we work around the clock." 3 months, Hiren repeated. She thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. "Ambassador Talon, you have permission to approach. Send us your technical specifications. We'll see what we can do." The Valthek ships limped into Earth orbit over the next 2 days. Up close, they were even worse than the sensors had shown. Jiho suited up and took a small shuttle to inspect the nearest vessel. What he saw made him want to cry and laugh at the same time. The Valthek had built their ships strong, that much was clear. But they had also built them with technology that was at least 50 years out of date, even by Earth's standards. Their hull plating was thick but inefficient. Their engines were reliable but slow. Their weapons were powerful but used so much energy that firing them probably dimmed the lights in the crew quarters. "This is amazing," Jiho said over the radio. "It's like finding a tank that runs on steam power." His assistant, Minho, floated next to him. Minho was younger, quieter, and had the unfortunate job of being the voice of reason on Jiho's team. "The ambassador said they need basic repairs," Minho reminded him. "Right. Basic repairs," Jiho agreed. But his mind was already racing. The Valthek power cores were twice the size they needed to be. The sensor arrays were using analog systems that Earth had abandoned decades ago. The whole ship was held together with what looked like hope and very good welding. Ambassador Talon met them at the airlock. He was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and eyes that looked tired beyond measure. He wore a uniform that had been patched many times, and he carried himself with the dignity of someone who had lost everything except his pride. "Thank you for coming," Talon said. "I know our ships are not impressive by your standards. Your ships are very impressive," Jiho said honestly. "You've kept them flying for 3 months, with damage that would have destroyed most vessels. That takes incredible skill." Talon looked surprised. "You are kind. Most species we have met think the Valthek are primitives. Most species are idiots," Jiho replied. Minho elbowed him. "What?" "It's true. Your ships are built well, they just need some updates. We only need them to fly," Talon said carefully. "We cannot afford major work. We have some payment, but not much." Jiho waved his hand. "We'll work something out. Let me see your engine room." The tour of the ship took 4 hours. Jiho asked 1,000 questions. Talon answered them all patiently. By the end, Jiho had filled 3 tablets with notes, and Minho had started to look worried. Back at the shipyard, Jiho presented his findings to Director Hiren. "Basic repairs will take 3 months," he said. "Hull patches, engine maintenance, life support restoration. We can do it." "Good," Hiren said. "Keep the costs reasonable. The council is already worried about the expense." "Absolutely," Jiho agreed. "Very reasonable. Very basic. Just simple repairs." After the meeting, Minho cornered Jiho in the hallway. "You're planning something. I don't know what you mean. You have that look. That look you get when you're about to ignore every instruction you were just given." Jiho grinned. "Minho, my friend. Those ships are crying out for help. The power systems are inefficient. The weapons are poorly integrated. The engines are basically antiques. How can I, in good conscience, send them back out into space like that? Because they asked for basic repairs, not a complete rebuild." "Basic repairs," Jiho repeated. "That's exactly what we'll do. We'll repair their ships back to basic functionality. Modern, efficient, properly designed, basic functionality." Minho closed his eyes. "You're going to rebuild them, aren't you?" "I'm going to fix them," Jiho corrected. "There's a difference." "No, there isn't. Not when you're doing it." Jiho patted Minho on the shoulder. "Don't worry so much. What's the worst that could happen? We make their ships a little better than they were? Is that so bad?" Minho looked at his captain and knew, with absolute certainty, that this repair job was going to get wildly out of control. He had worked with Jiho for 5 years. He had seen Jiho turn a simple maintenance check into a complete system overhaul, more times than he could count. The man was physically incapable of leaving well enough alone. "How much are you planning to improve them?" Minho asked. Jiho thought about it. "Maybe 10%? 20 at most." "Jiho, 30% tops, I promise." Minho knew that promise was worthless, but he also knew there was no point in arguing. Once Jiho got an idea in his head, the only way to stop him was to physically remove him from the shipyard, and even that probably wouldn't work. The next morning, work began on the Valthek fleet. The human crews swarmed over the alien ships with tools, scanners, and an enthusiasm that made Talon deeply nervous. He watched from the shipyard observation deck as dozens of engineers in spacesuits crawled over his flagship like ants on a hill. "They seem very excited," he said to Hiren. "They are," Hiren agreed. "Most of them have never seen alien technology before. You're giving them the opportunity of a lifetime. I hope they remember we only need basic repairs." Hiren smiled. "I'm sure they'll remember." She didn't mention that basic repairs meant something very different to human engineers than it did to anyone else. In her experience, human engineers treated every problem like a personal challenge from the universe. They didn't just fix things, they improved them, upgraded them, and generally made them better whether anyone asked for it or not. It was, she thought, probably going to be an interesting 3 months. Very interesting indeed. The first week of repairs went smoothly. Almost too smoothly. The human crews patched hull breaches, sealed atmosphere leaks, and replaced damaged systems exactly as requested. Ambassador Talon started to relax. Maybe these humans would keep their word after all. Then Dr. Suman arrived. Dr. Suman was Earth's top weapons specialist, a short woman with wild hair and an expression that always looked slightly manic. She had heard about the alien ships and demanded to see their weapons systems. Director Hiron had tried to say no, but Suman had simply showed up at the shipyard anyway. "I just want to look," Suman promised. "I won't touch anything." That promise lasted exactly 45 minutes. "This is criminal," Suman announced, standing in the weapons bay of the Valthek flagship. "These plasma cannons are individually powerful, but they're not networked. Each gun has its own targeting system. Do you know how inefficient that is?" The Valthek weapons officer, a stern man named Vorin, crossed his arms. "It is how we have always done it." "That doesn't make it good," Suman replied. She pulled out her tablet and started taking measurements. "Look, you have 12 main cannons on this ship. Right now, each one has to acquire and track its own target. That means 12 separate targeting computers, 12 separate power feeds, 12 separate cooling systems. It's wasteful. But it works," Vorin said. "It works badly," Suman countered. "What if I could make all 12 guns work together? Share targeting data? Coordinate fire patterns? Triple your effective hit rate? Would you want that?" Vorin hesitated. "That would require extensive modifications." "Not really. I just need to install a master targeting AI and link the guns to a central control system." "Easy. I could do it in a week." "We did not ask for weapon upgrades. You asked for repairs," Suman said with a grin. "I'm repairing your weapons. Repairing them to work properly." Vorin looked uncertain. He went to find Ambassador Talon, but by the time they returned, Suman had already started installing new control systems. Talon opened his mouth to object, then saw the look of pure joy on Suman's face and decided it wasn't worth the argument. Meanwhile, in the engine room, things were getting even more out of hand. Deho was a young engineer, barely 25, with a gift for propulsion systems. He had been assigned to do basic maintenance on the Valthek engines, clean the fuel lines, replace worn parts, make sure everything ran smoothly. Simple work, but Deho couldn't ignore what he was seeing. "These engines are so slow," he said to Minho. "They're reliable, yes, but they're using fusion drive technology from 50 years ago. Earth solved these efficiency problems decades back." Minho was trying to patch a coolant line. "We're not here to upgrade their engines, Deho. We're here to fix what's broken. But what if we could fix them and make them better at the same time?" Deho pulled up a design schematic on his tablet. "Look, if I add acceleration boosters here and install modern fuel injectors, I could increase their thrust by 40% without changing the core engine design." "Deho, no." "Deho, yes. These ships have been running from an enemy for 3 months. Don't they deserve engines that can actually run fast?" Minho tried to argue, but Deho was already ordering parts. The young engineer had the same problem as Captain Jiho. He saw something inefficient and physically could not leave it alone. It was like an itch that had to be scratched. Captain Jiho, for his part, was having the time of his life. He had taken one look at the Valthek power cores and nearly cried. They were massive, inefficient, and used a fusion containment design that Earth had abandoned 20 years ago. They worked, barely, but they wasted enormous amounts of energy and required constant maintenance. "We can't use these," Jiho announced. Ambassador Talon, who had been following Jiho around nervously, looked alarmed. "But they still function. You said you could repair them." "I can't repair something this fundamentally flawed," Jiho said. "It would be like putting a bandage on a broken bone. It might hold for a while, but it'll fail eventually." He pulled up his tablet. "What you need are modern fusion reactors. Smaller, more efficient, way more reliable." "We cannot afford new reactors," Talon said firmly. "Who said anything about buying them? We'll build them here. The materials cost is minimal, and we have the fabrication facilities. It'll actually be faster than trying to repair your old ones." Talon rubbed his forehead. "Ambassador, you keep saying that word. Repair. But you do not seem to understand what it means. Jiho looked genuinely confused. I'm repairing your ship. I'm repairing it by replacing the broken parts with working parts. These parts are not broken. They are old. Old parts break, Jiho said reasonably. I'm just saving you the trouble of them breaking later. The conversation went in circles for another 20 minutes. In the end, Talon gave up. He was starting to realize that arguing with human engineers was like arguing with the weather. You could complain all you wanted, but it wouldn't change anything. By the end of the second week, all 12 Valthek ships were swarming with human workers. The original plan of simple repairs had been completely abandoned. Instead, the shipyard had turned into something between a construction site and a mad scientist's laboratory. Suman had finished networking the weapons on the first ship and was so pleased with the results that she started doing it to all the others. She also couldn't resist improving the cooling systems, boosting the power output, and installing targeting software that she had written specifically for plasma cannons. Daiho had upgraded the engines on 3 ships and was working on his 4th. Each engine now had modern acceleration boosters, improved fuel efficiency, and thrust capabilities that made the original Valthek engines look like toys. Jiho had replaced the power cores on 2 ships entirely and was fabricating new reactors for the rest. The new reactors were half the size of the old ones but produced twice the power. The extra space was being filled with backup systems, improved life support, and in one case, a small greenhouse, because Jiho thought the crew would appreciate fresh vegetables. Ambassador Talon watched all of this with growing disbelief. They said 3 months for basic repairs, he told Vorin. It has been 2 weeks, and they have done more work than I expected in 6 months. Vorin, who had been helping Suman test the new weapon systems, looked almost happy. The humans are strange, Commander. They cannot help themselves. They see something that works poorly, and they must fix it. We did not ask them to fix everything. No, but they are doing it anyway. Vorin pulled up a datapad showing weapon efficiency reports. Look at this. The new targeting system increases our hit rate by 200%. Our guns can now fire in coordinated patterns. We can engage multiple targets simultaneously. This is not just an upgrade, Commander. This is a revolution. Talon took the datapad and studied it. The numbers were impressive. He had to admit. Frighteningly impressive. What about the engines? The young one, Daiho, says we will be 40% faster when he is finished. Maybe 50% if he adds another module he is thinking about. 50%, Talon repeated. That would make us faster than Kryn patrol ships. Yes, Commander. Talon was quiet for a long moment. The Valthek had been running from the Kryn Empire for months. Every day had been a desperate calculation of speed versus fuel consumption, of whether their damaged ships could make it to the next system. The idea of having ships that were actually fast, that could outrun their pursuers easily, seemed almost too good to be true. What about the cost? Talon asked. We agreed on payment for repairs, not for all of this. Vorin shrugged. I asked Engineer Suman about that. She said, and I quote, "We're already working on the ships. Might as well do it right." Then she went back to installing cooling systems. These humans are insane. Perhaps, Vorin agreed. But they are helpful. In the shipyard cafeteria, the human engineering teams were having lunch and discussing their progress. Minho sat with Jiho, Suman, and Daiho. Looking tired. We're supposed to be doing basic repairs, Minho said. Basic repairs. We are doing basic repairs, Jiho said around a mouthful of rice. We're just doing them basically better than they were before. You replaced their entire power system. The old one was broken. It was working. Working badly, Jiho corrected. There's a difference. Suman nodded. Besides, think about it from their perspective. They've been running from an empire that wants to destroy them. Don't we have a moral obligation to make their ships as good as possible? Anything less would be irresponsible. Daiho raised his hand. I vote we add recreational facilities to their ships. I notice they don't have any gyms or entertainment rooms. That's bad for crew morale on long voyages. Absolutely not, Minho said. No recreational facilities. We are already so far over budget that Director Hiron is going to have a heart attack. But it's a good idea, Deho protested. It's a terrible idea. We're supposed to be repairing ships, not building luxury cruise liners. Jiho looked thoughtful. Although, a small gym wouldn't hurt. Maybe just some basic equipment. And a rec room. Nothing fancy. Minho put his head in his hands. You people are going to get me fired. Don't be so dramatic, Suman said. We're doing good work. The Valthek are getting much better ships than they came with, and we're learning a ton about alien technology. Everybody wins. Except our budget. Money is temporary, Jiho said philosophically. But a well-engineered ship is forever. Minho looked around the table at his colleagues. They were all grinning, excited about their work, completely ignoring the fact that they had thrown the entire repair schedule out the window. He knew he should put his foot down. He should march to Director Hiron's office and demand that they stick to the original plan. But he also knew it wouldn't matter. These people were engineers. They lived to solve problems, to make things better, to push the boundaries of what was possible. Asking them to do only basic repairs was like asking an artist to paint only stick figures. It went against everything they believed in. Fine, Minho said with a sigh. But when Ambassador Talon complains that we're taking too long and doing too much, I'm blaming all of you. Deal, everyone said at once. Talon did complain, frequently, but it never seemed to make any difference. The human engineers just nodded, promised to keep things simple, and then went right back to upgrading everything they could get their hands on. After a while, Talon stopped complaining. It was clear that nothing he said would change their behavior. The humans were determined to improve his ships whether he wanted them to or not. By the end of the first month, the transformation was obvious. The Valthek ships still looked like Valthek ships on the outside, but inside, they were becoming something new, something powerful, something that might actually survive the next time they encountered the Kryn Empire. And the humans were just getting started. 3 months passed. The deadline that Captain Jiho had promised came and went without any ships leaving the shipyard. Ambassador Talon tried to be patient, but patience was becoming difficult when his people were still living in cramped refugee quarters, and the Kryn Empire was still hunting for them. Captain Jiho, Talon said one morning, finding the engineer elbow-deep in a control panel. You said 3 months for repairs. Did I? Jiho looked up, genuinely surprised. Has it been 3 months already? Yes, exactly 3 months. Huh. Time flies when you're having fun. Jiho went back to his work. Don't worry. We're almost done. Just need another 2 weeks. You said that last month. This time I mean it. Jiho grinned. 2 weeks. 3 tops. Maybe a month to be safe. Talon made a sound that might have been a growl. Captain, my people need to leave. We cannot stay in Earth orbit forever. The Kryn could find us. Jiho's expression became serious. Commander, I understand your concern. But trust me, you don't want to leave before we're finished. Your ships are going to be incredible. Just give us a little more time. That is what you keep saying, because it keeps being true. Talon wanted to argue, but he was interrupted by Vorin running up with a tablet. The Valthek engineer looked excited, which was unusual. Vorin rarely showed emotion. Commander, you need to see this, Vorin said. The humans have finished the shield upgrade. I did not ask for a shield upgrade. I know, but they did it anyway. Look at these numbers. Talon took the tablet and studied the data. His eyes widened. The new shield system was showing efficiency ratings that were 50% higher than the old Valthek shields. The power consumption was lower. The coverage was more complete. And the recharge time was cut in half. How is this possible? Talon asked. The humans reverse-engineered our shield technology and then improved it, Vorin explained. They said our original design was good but outdated. They combined it with their own shield research and created something better than both. Jiho nodded proudly. It was Engineer Suman's idea. She's brilliant, a little scary, but brilliant. She noticed that your shields were using single-layer projection, so she added a dual-layer system with automatic modulation based on incoming fire. It's really elegant. Talon looked between the two engineers. Let me understand this correctly. You took our shield technology, which we did not give you permission to study, reverse-engineered it, improved it, and installed it on all our ships? That's about right, Jiho agreed. We also added redundant generators in case the primary ones fail, and backup controls, and emergency capacitors. Safety is important. You people are impossible. Thank you, Jiho said, missing the point entirely. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to finish these sensor upgrades. Your old sensors were making my eyes hurt. After Jiho wandered off, Vorin looked at his commander. Sir, I know this is not what we planned, but the work they are doing is extraordinary. Our ships will be more powerful than they have ever been. I am aware, Talon said tiredly. I am also aware that we are completely at their mercy. If the humans decided to keep our ships, we could not stop them, but they will not, Vorin said with surprising confidence. I have worked with them for 3 months now. They are not doing this for power or control. They are doing it because they cannot help themselves. They see a problem, and they must fix it. It is their nature. Talon wanted to disagree, but he couldn't. Everything Vorin said was true. The humans weren't hostile or manipulative. They were just infuriatingly helpful. In the shipyard's main office, Director Hyarin was having a similar conversation with Admiral Kyung. Kyung was the head of Earth's military forces, a stern man with gray hair and a permanent expression of skepticism. He had been watching the Valthek situation closely. These upgrades you're doing, Kyung said. They're extensive. Very extensive, Hyarin admitted. Much more than we originally planned. Are we doing this out of kindness, or is there a strategy here? Hyarin leaned back in her chair. Both. Captain Jiho and his team genuinely want to help. But I've also been thinking about the bigger picture. The Valthek are running from the Kryn Empire. That empire is expanding. Eventually, they'll reach human space. Kyung nodded slowly. You're building an alliance. I'm building better ships and hoping for friendship. The Valthek are experienced spacefaring people. They have knowledge we don't. And if we help them now, they might help us later. That's a gamble. Everything is a gamble, Hyarin replied. But I'd rather gamble on helping refugees than on fighting an empire alone. Kyung studied the reports on his tablet. The amount of technology sharing that had happened in 3 months was remarkable. The Valthek had taught humans about advanced metallurgy, energy weapon design, and deep space navigation. In return, humans had shared manufacturing techniques, computer systems, and engineering methods. Your engineers are teaching them a lot, Kyung observed. They're learning a lot too, Hyarin said. Vorin has been working with our teams every day. He's teaching them things about shield technology that our scientists have been trying to figure out for years. This is a real exchange, not just us helping them. Meanwhile, in one of the ship workshops, exactly that kind of exchange was happening. Dr. Suman was showing Vorin her latest weapon design. It was a hybrid system that combined Valthek plasma technology with human targeting computers and power management. The result was a weapon that was more accurate, more efficient, and more powerful than anything either species had created alone. The key is the firing cycle, Suman explained, pulling up diagrams on her tablet. Your plasma cannons are very powerful, but they overheat quickly. Our cooling systems can fix that, and our targeting AI can predict enemy movements, so we waste less shots. Vorin studied the designs carefully. This is remarkable. May I share these plans with my government? Of course, that's the whole point. We learn from you, you learn from us, everybody gets smarter. Suman grinned. Although I have to warn you, once your people start working with our methods, they'll probably start over-engineering everything too. It's contagious. I have noticed, Vorin said dryly. Yesterday, one of your engineers added a backup system to our backup system. That sounds like Deho. He's very enthusiastic about redundancy. Speaking of Deho, the young engineer was in the engine room, explaining his latest modification to a group of very confused Valthek crew members. "So I added these acceleration boosters here," Deho said, pointing at the new equipment. "And these improved fuel injectors here. And this whole module here is a secondary thrust system for emergencies. And over here, I installed a monitoring system so you can track engine performance in real time." One of the Valthek engineers raised a hand. "But our engines were already functional." "Functional isn't the same as optimal," Deho explained. "Your old engines could get you from point A to point B. These new engines can get you there 40% faster while using 20% less fuel. Plus, they're more reliable, easier to maintain, and they have automatic diagnostics that warn you before anything breaks." "How did you do all this in 3 months?" Deho shrugged. "I had help. And we have really good fabrication facilities. And I didn't sleep much. But mainly, your engine design was actually really solid. I just updated it to modern standards." The Valthek engineers looked at each other. They had been trained to maintain their ships, to keep them running under difficult conditions, to make do with what they had. The human approach was different. Humans didn't make do. They made better. Back in the command center, Counselor Nari was having a heated discussion with Director Hiren. Nari was a politician, worried about budgets and public opinion, and all the things that engineers usually ignored. "Do you have any idea how much this is costing?" Nari demanded. "The council approved funding for basic repairs. What you're doing is a complete rebuild of 12 alien warships." "I'm aware of the costs," Hiren said calmly. "Then why are you allowing this?" "Because it's the right thing to do. And because it's already done." Hiren pulled up images of the Valthek ships. "Look at them, Counselor. These ships came to us broken and desperate. Now they're powerful and capable. We've made real friends here. Allies who will remember that Earth helped them when no one else would. Friendship doesn't pay for ship repairs." "No, but it might save us in the future." Hiren turned to Admiral Kyung. "Show her the intelligence reports." Kyung pulled up classified information on his secure tablet. "The Kryn Empire has been expanding aggressively for 10 years. They've conquered or destroyed 15 different species. They're moving toward our region of space. Within 5 years, maybe less, we're going to have to deal with them." Nari's expression changed from angry to worried. "You think they'll attack Earth?" "I think they'll attack anyone who doesn't submit to them," Kyung replied. "The Valthek fled rather than surrender. That tells us the Kryn don't negotiate. They dominate. And you want to use the Valthek as allies against them." "I want to help the Valthek because it's right," Hiren corrected. "But yes, if it also helps us survive what's coming, I'll take that advantage gladly." Nari was quiet for a long moment. "How much longer will the repairs take?" "Captain Jiho says 2 more weeks. Do you believe him?" Hiren smiled slightly. "No. I think it will be at least a month. But the results will be worth it." 6 more weeks passed. The 2 weeks Jiho had promised turned into 6, just as Hiren had predicted. But during that time, the transformation of the Valthek fleet became complete. The ships still had their original hulls, but everything else had been upgraded, replaced, or improved. The power systems were modern fusion reactors. The engines had cutting-edge acceleration technology. The weapons were networked and deadly. The shields were multi-layered and efficient. Even the crew quarters had been renovated, with better life support, comfortable beds, and yes, small gyms that Deho had insisted on adding. Ambassador Talon walked through his flagship and barely recognized it. The corridors were brighter, the air was cleaner, and everything hummed with quiet power. His crew moved through the ship with confidence they hadn't shown in months. "It's amazing," he admitted to Voron. "I am still angry about how long it took, but I cannot deny the results." "Wait until you see the combat performance," Voron said. "We ran simulations yesterday. These ships could take on Kryn cruisers now. Maybe even win." Talon stopped walking. "Win? Against Kryn cruisers?" "Yes, Commander. The weapons upgrades alone have tripled our firepower. Add in the new shields, the faster engines, and the improved sensors, and we are a real threat." For the first time in months, Talon felt something like hope. That evening, Captain Jiho found Ambassador Talon on the observation deck, staring at his ships floating in orbit. "We're finished," Jiho announced. "All 12 ships are ready to go. Better than new, actually. Way better than new." "Thank you," Talon said quietly. "I know I complained often. But thank you. You're welcome." Jiho stood beside him, admiring his work. "I got a little carried away, didn't I?" "A little," Talon agreed. "You promised 3 months, and basic repairs. It has been 5 months, and complete rebuilds." "Yeah. Sorry about that. I just couldn't help myself. Your ships deserved better." Talon smiled despite himself. "You humans are strange. You see someone in need, and you cannot stop helping, even when they do not ask for it. Is that bad?" "No," Talon said. "It is wonderful and infuriating at the same time." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the ships gleam in the sunlight. Neither of them knew that, at that very moment, a Kryn scout ship had just entered the outer solar system and was scanning for the Valthek refugees. Neither of them knew that their peaceful repair project was about to become very complicated, but they would find out soon enough. The alarm came at dawn. This time, it wasn't Captain Jiho's tablet that woke him, but the station-wide emergency system. Every speaker in the Sol Orbital shipyard blared the same message in 3 languages. "Unknown vessel detected. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." Jiho was in the command center within minutes. Director Hyerin was already there, along with Admiral Kyung and a dozen other officers. On the main screen, a single ship hung at the edge of the solar system, sleek and dark. "Identification?" Hyerin asked. "None," the sensor officer replied. "The ship isn't responding to hails, but it matches the profiles we got from the Valthek databases." "That's a Kryn scout vessel." Ambassador Talon arrived moments later, still putting on his uniform jacket. He took one look at the screen, and his face went pale. "That is a recon-class scout. Fast, well-armed, and very dangerous." "Is it here for you?" Admiral Kyung asked. "Almost certainly. The Kryn have been hunting my people for months. They must have tracked us here. Can we talk to them?" Talon shook his head. "The Kryn do not negotiate with species they consider inferior, and they consider everyone inferior." On the screen, the Kryn scout was moving closer, scanning everything in its path. Its sensors swept over the Valthek ships, over the shipyard, over the human defense fleet. Inside that ship, High Inquisitor Zrath was staring at his displays with growing confusion. "These readings cannot be correct," Zrath said to his crew. "The Valthek ships show power signatures far beyond their normal capacity. And these energy weapons, these are not Valthek designs. Perhaps they have allied with another species," his second officer suggested. "Then we must identify them." Zrath opened a communication channel, not to ask for peace, but to demand submission. "This is High Inquisitor Zrath of the Kryn Empire. The Valthek refugees in this system are property of the Empire. Surrender them immediately, or face military action." In the command center, everyone turned to look at Director Hyerin. She stood up slowly, her expression calm but cold. "This is Director Hyerin of the Earth Defense Forces. The Valthek are under our protection. You are ordered to leave this system immediately." There was a long pause. Then Zrath laughed. "Earth? We have no records of Earth. You are unknown and therefore insignificant. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will return with a battle fleet." The communication cut off. The Kryn scout performed a tight turn and accelerated away, heading back toward the jump point. Within seconds, it was gone. "That went well," Jiho said sarcastically. Admiral Kyung was already on his feet. "We need to prepare for an attack. Director Hyerin, how many ships can we deploy? For defense? 8 cruisers, maybe 12 if we pull in the outer patrol ships." "That won't be enough," Talon said quietly. "A Kryn battle fleet typically includes at least 30 warships, plus support vessels. They will overwhelm your defenses easily. Then we need more ships." Kyung turned to Jiho. Captain, how long would it take to build new vessels? Jiho thought for a moment. Using traditional methods? 6 months for a single cruiser. But he pulled up his tablet, his fingers flying across the screen. What if we don't use traditional methods? What are you thinking? We just spent 5 months upgrading the Valthek fleet. We learned their technology, they learned ours. We know what works and what doesn't. We have the designs, the materials, and the fabrication facilities. Jiho looked up, his eyes bright with excitement. We could mass-produce hybrid ships, human engineering with Valthek weapons. Fast, tough, and deadly. How fast could you build them? If we automate everything and run the fabricators 24 hours a day, maybe 2 weeks per ship? Less if we simplify the design. Engineer Hana, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. Hana was a specialist in modular ship construction, a methodical woman who preferred efficiency over elegance. We could do better than that, she said. Build the ships in modules. Standardize everything. Use the Valthek ships as templates. If we do it right, we could produce 1 ship every 4 days. Everyone stared at her. That's impossible, Kyung said. No, it's not. It's just very difficult. Hana pulled up her own designs. Look. We build the ships in sections. Power core here, weapons module here, engines here. Crew quarters here. Each module is constructed separately and then assembled. It's like building blocks. The Valthek have been doing something similar for years. We just need to refine it and scale it up. Director Hiren leaned forward, studying the plans. How many fabrication facilities would you need? All of them. Every shipyard in Earth orbit. Every manufacturing plant that can be converted. We turn our entire industrial capacity toward this project. That's a massive undertaking. So is fighting off an alien empire, Hana replied. Hiren looked at Admiral Kyung, then at Ambassador Talon, then back at the designs on the screen. Do it, she said. Start immediately. Captain Jiho. Coordinate with Engineer Hana. I want a prototype ship in 1 week. You'll have it in 5 days, Jiho promised. The next week was chaos. Every shipyard in Earth orbit became a construction site. Human engineers and Valthek crew members worked side by side, sharing knowledge at a frantic pace. The Valthek taught humans about energy, weapon placement, and shield harmonics. Humans taught the Valthek about automated manufacturing and modular design. Dr. Suman took charge of weapons development. She created a standardized weapon package that could be installed on any ship, human or Valthek design. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, point defense systems, all networked together through a central AI. Deho focused on engines, creating a propulsion module that was fast, efficient, and easy to manufacture. He borrowed ideas from both human and Valthek designs, combining the best of both worlds. Vorin, the Valthek engineer, worked with Hana on the structural design. They created a hull that was strong enough to take hits, but simple enough to build quickly. Every decision was a balance between quality and speed. 5 days later, the first hybrid ship rolled out of the construction bay. It was smaller than a traditional cruiser, but packed with more firepower than ships twice its size. It was fast, maneuverable, and built from scratch in less than a week. It's beautiful, Jiho said, wiping a tear from his eye. It's functional, Hana corrected. Beauty can come later. Right now, we need numbers. They named it the Unity class, and it became the template for everything that followed. Within another week, 3 more ships were complete. Then 5 more. Then 10. The construction rate accelerated as workers learned the process and refined the techniques. The human and Valthek crews trained together, learning to coordinate their tactics. The Valthek had experience fighting the Kryn and understood their strategies. The humans had fresh perspectives and new technology. Combined, they developed battle plans that neither species could have created alone. Ambassador Talon found himself in an unexpected position. He had come to Earth as a refugee begging for help. Now he was a military advisor, teaching human commanders how to fight an empire that had terrorized his people for years. The Kryn rely on overwhelming force, Talon explained during a strategy meeting. They send large fleets and crush resistance through sheer numbers. They expect enemies to break and run. What if we don't run? Admiral Kyung asked. Then they send more ships. Talon pulled up tactical displays. But they are not creative fighters. They use the same formations, the same approach patterns. If you know what to expect, you can counter it. Show us. For hours, Talon and the human commanders worked on battle strategies. They studied Kryn tactics, identified weaknesses, and developed countermeasures. The Valthek provided intelligence, and the humans provided innovation. 3 weeks after the Kryn scouts' visit, Earth had built 26 new warships. Combined with the 12 upgraded Valthek vessels and Earth's existing defense fleet, they had a total of 46 combat-ready ships. It still wasn't enough to match a full Kryn battle fleet, but it was better than anyone had expected. Captain Jiho stood in the observation deck, watching the newly built fleet conduct training exercises. The ships moved in formation, testing their weapons, practicing coordination. It was strange to see human and Valthek vessels flying together, working as one unit. "We did good work," Vorin said, standing beside him. "We did," Jiho agreed. "I just hope it's enough." It will have to be. In the deep space beyond Neptune, a Kryn battle fleet was assembling. High Inquisitor Wrath had returned with reinforcements as promised. 38 warships, 2 carrier vessels, and a flagship that bristled with weapons. Wrath studied the reports from his scout mission. The unknown species called humans had refused to surrender. They had chosen resistance. It was foolish, but not surprising. Most inferior species made the same mistake. "Prepare for attack," Wrath ordered. "We will enter the system, destroy their defenses, and capture the Valthek refugees. Any resistance will be crushed." "What if their defenses are stronger than expected?" his tactical officer asked. "Then we crush them harder," Wrath replied. "The Kryn Empire does not negotiate. We dominate." The fleet activated its jump drives. In a flash of blue light, they vanished from the outer system and reappeared near Mars' orbit, right in the middle of Earth's defensive line. What they saw there made every Kryn commander pause. Dozens of ships hung in space, arranged in a defensive formation. Some were clearly the Valthek vessels they had been tracking, but most were unknown designs, sleek and dangerous-looking, and all of them had their weapons armed and ready. Wrath stared at the tactical display. "This is not possible." The intelligence said these humans were a primitive species, barely spacefaring. "Perhaps the intelligence was wrong," his tactical officer suggested. "Intelligence is never wrong," Wrath said automatically. Then he looked at the numbers again. 46 ships. Not enough to defeat his fleet, but enough to make the battle costly, very costly. In the Earth Command Center, Admiral Kyung watched the Kryn fleet appear on the sensors. He felt his stomach tighten, but kept his voice steady. "All ships, battle stations. This is it." Director Hyarin stood beside him. "They're not attacking yet. They're surprised," Kyung said. "They expected easy prey. Instead, they found a prepared defense force. Will they attack anyway? Probably. But they're thinking about it first, and that gives us an advantage." On the communication channels, Captain Jiho was coordinating with the fleet. "All Unity-class ships. Check your weapon systems. Valthek vessels. Prepare shields for maximum output. Human cruisers, stand by for support fire." Across the formation, crews made final preparations. Human and Valthek worked side by side, no longer refugees and rescuers but allies facing a common threat. Ambassador Talon sat in the command chair of his flagship, surrounded by his crew and several human officers who had volunteered to serve alongside them. He looked at the Kryn fleet on his displays and felt, for the first time in months, something other than fear. He felt ready. "All ships," Talon broadcast on the joint channel. "The Kryn Empire expects us to run. They expect us to break. They do not know that we have spent 5 months learning from the humans, training with the humans, becoming something new." He paused. "Today, we show them what that means. Today, we fight together. And today, we win. On the human ships, crews cheered. On the Valthek ships, warriors roared. And in the command center on the Sol orbital shipyard, Captain Jiho grinned. "Let's show them what happens when you ask human engineers to fix something," he said. "We give you way more than you asked for." The Kryn fleet began to advance. The battle was about to begin. The Kryn fleet moved forward in a standard attack formation. High Inquisitor Zrath watched from his flagship as his ships spread out, preparing to overwhelm the defenders through superior numbers. It was a formation the Kryn had used successfully hundreds of times. It had never failed. It was about to fail spectacularly. "All ships, hold position," Admiral Kyung ordered. "Let them come to us. Wait for optimal range." The human and Valthek fleet remained still, weapons charged but not firing. To the Kryn, it looked like fear. To anyone who understood tactics, it was patience. Zrath smiled. "They freeze in terror. Advance and destroy them." The Kryn ships accelerated, closing the distance rapidly. Their heavy cruisers led the charge, shields at maximum, weapons ready to unleash devastating fire. It was an intimidating sight. 38 warships bearing down on a defensive line. But Captain Jiho, watching from the shipyard, wasn't intimidated. He was calculating. "Optimal range in 10 seconds, he announced on the tactical channel. "All Unity-class ships, target their lead cruisers. Valthek vessels, focus on their carriers. Human defense fleet, provide cover fire." 5 seconds. The Kryn fleet was close now, entering maximum weapon range. Zrath prepared to give the order to fire. "Now!" Kyung shouted. The human Valthek fleet opened fire all at once. Dozens of plasma cannons, missile launchers, and energy weapons lit up space in a coordinated barrage. But this wasn't the scattered, individual fire that the Kryn expected. This was networked, AI-coordinated destruction. Dr. Suman's weapon systems did exactly what they were designed to do. Every gun in the fleet shared targeting data. The AI calculated optimal fire patterns. Shots that would have missed individually were timed to hit simultaneously. The result was devastating. The lead Kryn cruiser took 17 direct hits in 3 seconds. Its shields collapsed instantly. The hull breached in 4 locations. The ship spun out of control, venting atmosphere and debris. 2 more cruisers suffered similar fates before they could even return fire. "Impossible!" Zrath shouted. "Their weapons should not be that accurate." "They're using coordinated targeting," his tactical officer reported, her voice shaking. "Every ship in their fleet is linked. They're firing as one unit." The Kryn fleet tried to adjust, spreading out to make themselves harder targets. But the human Valthek ships adapted instantly. The Unity-class vessels, with their enhanced speed from Daho's engine upgrades, moved into attack positions faster than the Kryn could track. "They're too fast," a Kryn commander reported. "Our targeting systems can't keep up." Zrath watched in disbelief as his numerical advantage became meaningless. The enemy ships moved like a school of fish, each one aware of every other's position, coordinating without apparent communication. It was a level of tactical integration he had never seen. What he didn't know was that the human and Valthek crews had trained for weeks specifically for this. They had practiced joint maneuvers, developed hand signals and code words, and learned to fight as a single force. The Valthek provided experience and tactical knowledge. The humans provided technology and adaptability. Together, they were something neither species could be alone. "All Valthek ships, execute pattern Talon 3. Ambassador Talon ordered. The 12 upgraded Valthek vessels broke from the main formation and swept around the Kryn fleet's flank. Their new shields, designed by Suman and improved by Vorin, shrugged off return fire. Their weapons, powered by Jiho's upgraded reactors, fired continuously without overheating. One of the Kryn carriers tried to launch fighters. The Unity-class ship Determination moved to intercept. Its point defense systems, a combination of human precision and Valthek power, shredded the incoming fighters before they could form up. Then Determination hit the carrier with a full missile barrage. The carrier's shields held for almost 5 seconds. Then they collapsed. And the missiles struck home. The carrier broke in two, its fuel reserves detonating in a massive explosion. Carrier 1 is destroyed, the tactical officer reported to Zrath. Carrier 2 is requesting permission to withdraw. Denied, Zrath roared. All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship of the defense fleet. Destroy it, and they will break. The Kryn fleet focused their weapons on Ambassador Talon's upgraded vessel. Dozens of plasma bolts and energy beams converged on the Valthek flagship. It was enough firepower to destroy 3 normal ships, but this was no longer a normal ship. The multi-layered shields absorbed the first wave of attacks. The redundant power systems that Jiho had insisted on installing kicked in when the primary generators overloaded. The backup cooling systems that everyone had thought were excessive kept the ship's systems running even under sustained fire. Shields at 60%, Vorin reported calmly. All systems functional, no critical damage. Talon smiled. He keyed the communication channel. Captain Jiho, your excessive engineering saves lives. In the shipyard command center, Jiho pumped his fist. I told everyone those backup systems were important. Director Hiron, standing beside him, allowed herself a small smile. Don't let it go to your head. The battle continued, but the momentum had shifted completely. The Kryn had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were being systematically dismantled by a force that fought smarter, moved faster, and hit harder than anything they had encountered. A Unity-class ship named Perseverance caught a Kryn destroyer in a crossfire with 2 Valthek cruisers. The destroyer's shields failed under the combined assault, and the ship broke apart. The human defense cruiser Soul's Pride used its superior sensors to identify weak points in Kryn shield coverage and transmitted the data to the entire fleet. Within seconds, every ship adjusted their targeting to exploit those weaknesses. The cultural exchange that had happened during the repair project was now a military advantage. The Valthek knew how to survive against superior numbers. The humans knew how to adapt and improvise. Together, they were devastating. High Inquisitor Zrath watched his fleet fall apart and felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of losing. Fear of reporting back to the Empire that he had been defeated by an unknown species and a group of refugees. All ships, retreat to jump point, he ordered. Sir, we still outnumber them, his tactical officer protested. And we are still losing, Zrath snapped. Look at the numbers. We have lost 11 ships. They have lost none. None. This is not a battle. It is a massacre. And we are the ones being slaughtered. The Kryn fleet began to withdraw, their formation breaking down as ships scrambled to escape. The human Valthek fleet pursued but didn't chase too far. They had won. There was no need to risk ships on a risky pursuit. Admiral Kyung watched the Kryn jump away and let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. All ships, stand down from battle stations, report casualties and damage. The reports came in quickly. 2 Unity-class ships had moderate damage. 3 Valthek vessels needed shield repairs. The human cruiser Incheon had a damaged sensor array. But no ships were destroyed. No lives were lost. Against a force that should have overwhelmed them, the human Valthek fleet had achieved a perfect defensive victory. In the command center, everyone was quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire room erupted in cheers and applause. Captain Jiho found himself swept up in a hug by Engineer Hana, who normally never showed emotion. We did it, she shouted. The ships worked. Everything worked. Of course they worked, Jiho said, grinning. We built them. Director Hiron walked over to Ambassador Talon's communication screen. The Valthek commander looked exhausted but happy. Ambassador, your people fought brilliantly. As did yours, Talon replied. Director, when we came here 5 months ago, we were refugees running from an empire. Today, we stood against that empire and won. You have given us more than repaired ships. You have given us hope. You gave us something too, Hiron said. You gave us allies, friends, And you taught our engineers a lot about shield technology. Talon laughed. Your engineers taught my people that there is no such thing as good enough. There is only better. It is a lesson we will not forget. Over the next few hours, the fleet regrouped and returned to Earth orbit. Repair crews swarmed over the damaged ships, fixing what the battle had broken. Interestingly, the repairs went much faster than anyone expected. The modular design that Hana had insisted on meant that damaged sections could be simply disconnected and replaced. It's like changing batteries, one engineer marveled. You just swap out the broken module and put in a new one. In the shipyard cafeteria, the combined crews celebrated their victory. Humans and Valthek sat together, sharing stories and food. Cultural differences that had seemed important a few months ago now seemed trivial. They had fought together. They had bled together. They were no longer separate species. They were allies. Dr. Suman found Vorin and raised her drink. To human Valthek cooperation. To not dying, Vorin replied, clinking his glass against hers. That too. Across the room, Deho was explaining his engine designs to a group of fascinated Valthek engineers. They listened with the intensity of students learning from a master, taking notes, and asking detailed questions. The key is redundancy, Deho explained. You always need a backup. And a backup for the backup. And maybe another backup after that. Is that not excessive? One Valthek asked. Is being alive excessive? Deho countered. Today, those backups kept ships flying when they should have exploded. Excessive saved lives. The Valthek engineers nodded, understanding dawning in their eyes. They were learning the human philosophy of engineering. There is no such thing as too prepared. 3 days after the battle, a message arrived from the Kryn Empire. It was addressed to Earth's government, and was surprisingly polite. The Kryn Empire acknowledges the defensive capabilities of the Earth-Valthek alliance. The region of space containing your systems will be marked as contested territory. The Empire will not enter this region without prior diplomatic contact. Admiral Kyung read the message and laughed. They're scared of us. They should be, Director Hiron replied. We built 46 warships in a month. Imagine what we could build in a year. The message was shared with Ambassador Talon. He stared at it for a long time, then looked up at the humans around him with tears in his eyes. Do you understand what this means? For the first time in 3 years, my people are safe. The Kryn Empire has acknowledged our right to exist. We have a home again. You always had a home, Captain Jiho said. You just didn't know it yet. Welcome to Earth's corner of the galaxy, Ambassador. We're glad you're here. Over the following months, the relationship between Earth and the Valthek deepened. The Valthek refugees settled on Mars, building a colony that combined their architecture with human technology. In return, they shared their knowledge freely, teaching humans about advanced materials, energy systems, and deep space navigation. The shipyards continued to produce vessels. But now they were building for exploration and trade instead of just defense. The Unity-class design was refined and improved. Incorporating lessons from the battle, it became the standard ship design for both humans and Valthek, a symbol of their cooperation. Other species heard about what happened. Word spread through the galaxy about Earth, the world where you could ask for simple repairs and receive a complete rebuild. About the humans who couldn't help but make everything better. About the engineers who never knew when to stop. 6 months after the battle, another alien ship arrived at Earth. This one was from a species called the Morvath. And they needed help with their damaged freighter. We only need minor repairs, the Morvath captain explained carefully. Just the engines and maybe the life support. Nothing major. Director Hiron smiled. Of course. Minor repairs. We can definitely do that. She turned to Captain Jiho. Captain, can you handle this? Jiho looked at the Morvath ship on his scanners. His eyes lit up with that familiar gleam. Minor repairs. Absolutely. Just need to take a look at your power systems first. And your hull integrity. And your sensor arrays. And possibly your entire electrical system. But don't worry, we'll keep it simple. Minho, standing beside him, put his head in his hands. "Here we go again." The Morvath captain looked nervous. "You will not change too much." "Yes?" "Define too much," Jiho said with a grin. 8 months later, the Morvath captain left Earth with a freighter that was faster, more efficient, and more advanced than any ship in his fleet. He had come asking for minor repairs. He left with a completely transformed vessel and a profound respect for human engineering. Word continued to spread. More species came to Earth, always asking for simple fixes. None of them ever received simple fixes. All of them received ships that were better than they had imagined possible, and all of them left as friends and allies of Earth. The galaxy learned a valuable lesson. Never ask humans to just fix something. They would fix it, yes, but they would also improve it, upgrade it, and generally make it so much better that you'd wonder how you ever lived with the original. It was frustrating, expensive, and occasionally maddening. It was also wonderful. In the Seoul orbital shipyard, Captain Jiho stood at his favorite observation window, watching the construction of Earth's newest vessel. It was a joint project with the Valtech, incorporating technology from 6 different species that had come for repairs and stayed for friendship. "You know," Minho said, standing beside him, "we still never learned how to just do basic repairs." "Sure we did," Jiho replied. "We repair things basically better than they were before. That counts. That's not what basic repairs means. It is now." Jiho turned to his assistant with a smile. "Minho, we asked the universe for a simple repair job, and the universe gave us allies, friends, and a whole new way of seeing what's possible. I'd call that a fair trade." Minho thought about it and nodded. Yeah, I guess it is." They stood together, watching the ships move through space, human and alien vessels working side by side. What had started as a desperate request for help had become something beautiful, something that changed the galaxy, all because human engineers couldn't help but make things better. And honestly, they wouldn't have it any other way.